Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. It's Chad Hyams here with Bob Stewart. Somewhere different. Bob Stewart, how are you today?
Chad, I think I'm good. I'm in our headquarters. Good? No, well, I am good. What I was going to say, I'm in our headquarters, and we run a tech company. Chad, I swear we run a tech company. The crazy thing about that is I can't get a good internet signal in our building from which we run a tech company.
Correct.
So I don't know. I guess that's why when we used to record here in the offices, we used, I don't know, Dave had like tape recorders. I think he recorded us on a tape recorder or something.
I think, yes, he spliced together some of those old reel-to-reel tape recorders. I think that's how we did it, Bob. Either that or we had a dedicated line or something just for us. Nobody
knew. Now you left me. You moved to Florida. You're surviving hurricanes.
I am.
And like, I'm surprised you even come to work anymore. I thought when you moved to Florida, like that was it. You just, you got like the comfy socks and
I'm wearing them. I'm wearing them.
I knew it.
I'm wearing them in my shorts. I'm in my t-shirt and I'm recording a podcast. Why do I do it, Bob? Because I love doing this. I love being able to keep sharing with our audience and our audience keeps supporting us. So how can I stop? I mean, even if I ever retired, I'll never retire. Even if I ever retired, I'd probably still want to do the Win, Make, Give podcast with you.
You know what you would need probably is like a steady flow of prospects for your business. Maybe Marquel can help us with that here as we bring a guest in today.
You melt my heart. It only took 4 years before you learned the art of the segue.
Hold on, that was my second one. We've done like 400 episodes. That is officially my second segue. Thank you.
Hey, I'll take it. I love it. And you've already mentioned his name. Marquel Russell, welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. How are you today?
I am fantastic. Absolutely amazing. I'm excited to be here with you, fellas.
We're excited to have you.
So, Chad, before you do it,
before I even do the intro,
well, Marquel, what we generally do, and Chad, I'm going to take Chad's thunder on everything here today. I'm just going to steal all your lines, Chad. So we generally don't read bios here at the Win, Make, Give podcast because we think they're silly. They're written to like inflate somebody's ego. And so I was on your site, one of your sites. You've got a few, but I was on one of them reading your bio, and that was the first thing it said: is I hate bios. I don't like writing them. Right. But we are going to ask you to introduce yourself to our audience and do it in whichever way you feel comfortable. So you lead with what you want them to know about you.
Yeah. I mean, in short, I am part-time. I advise entrepreneurs and help them scale companies that can run without them. Help them scale to the $1 million and mark beyond. And of course, by prioritizing life over business. I know a lot of times in the entrepreneurial world, a lot of people are obsessed with like hustle and grind 24/7, sleep when you're dead, that type of thing. I ain't really into that. I'm totally unsubscribed from that. I like enjoy life. I like optimize for peace, happiness, profit, free time, more days off. So one of the metrics I have my clients track is days off, right? Your revenue is great, but how many days did you take off where you didn't work at all? So that's what I do part-time. Full-time, I'm a husband. I'm a father. That's all the different titles that I have. My favorite title is dad.
Oh, you melt my heart. We're both dads. How old are your kids, Marquel?
I have a 4-year-old. 4-year-old is my youngest. And then I have a 4-year-old, 9-year-old, 11. I have a 21-year-old and a 23-year-old. And my 23-year-old has a son. So,
Grandpa Marquel.
I got to say, folks, we don't share the video, right? I dare you to go Google Marquel. You can go to his website, scalemadeeasy.com. Marquel, you look like you're 23.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You look like I was about to ask you how old you actually were. I don't ever think I've asked a guest, except we had one lady who she was impressing us that she was in her 70s on what she was actually doing. But because your terminology is even, I'm unsubscribed from that, right? That's someone who grew up in the internet world to even say, I would never say I'm unsubscribed from that. I'm an old get off my porch guy or off my lawn guy, like Bob and I say. I'm going to ask, how old are you? You have a 23-year-old.
I actually just turned 47 days ago, literally a week ago today.
All right. You're still young then. Okay. Got it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So Bob will probably talk about something in the background because he loves doing that. Bob loves taking us off course to some fun, interesting things, which open up for some great conversation. Yet, Marquel, the thing I want to dive into that I found out about you is you've got like kind of 3 great little talks. And one of them I really, really want to share. And that's this 7 habits of highly effective multi-million-dollar CEOs. And the thing I love about it is, Bob, you heard that, right? It's 7 habits. I mean, Marquel's already, he doesn't like bios. He's not doing lists that are 5 or 10 and being cliche like everybody else. I think I'm replacing you, Bob. I think Marquel's my new co-host.
By the way, Marquel, Chad's been trying to replace me for 4 years. So if you're the guy that finally makes it happen, like kudos to you.
Wow.
He goes on enough vacations. He's been replaced. He just doesn't realize he's the guest who keeps showing up.
Marquel just told me that one of the metrics in life is how many days off I'm taking. So I'm taking that to heart.
I moved to Florida. I'm taking most of them off now.
Wait,
Bob.
Before you get into the 7 habits of a highly effective CEO, Marquel, it's funny because we have another podcast on the Win Make Give network that's called No Days Off, but it's not the concept of like taking, you're not like working every day, right? Brian Gubernick, who runs that podcast, his idea on No Days Off is every day he's trying to improve himself or kind of better his life or better 100%. His relationships or better his wealth. So I know that when you talk about taking days off, you're talking about decompressing from work, right? And but not necessarily, just putting your brain on ice for 24 hours and doing nothing to improve your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because like even as like to your point, it's like I'm looking at how do I get better every day in some area, right? So even if it's going for a 20-minute walk, right? Like it's something I enjoy doing. I started doing it recently. It is like, man, it's like talk about a hack, right? A quote unquote hack. It was like going for a walk. And don't go on and then like try going on it without your phone, right? Total game changer, right? Total game changer. I call it, but my brother, he calls it God's therapy, like a walk with no phone, just totally in nature, totally game changer.
Okay, so now let's challenge you to do the 12-hour walk, right? And you go, as many of us, Bob, were challenged at a convention that we were at from Colin O'Grady, if I'm pulling it out of my memory here, right? The 12-hour walk where he says, no phone, no nothing, just go out your front door and just basically walk for 6 hours, turn around and walk for 6 hours back.
Wow.
Yeah, and the thoughts that'll go through your head. Bob, secretly, I had Marquel make sure he talked about that because I'm going to work health into every conversation with you as I can. Okay, so I want to know about this, day off strategy, this number that you're tracking. I got to imagine somewhere in these habits, there's going to be stuff that allow us to take days off. Bob's our note taker, so he's going to take way better notes than I am, Marquel. Where do you want to start? Let's help our audience. We've got entrepreneurs who are growing a massive business. Many of them are in those industries that are not a Monday to Friday industry. So they have challenges with days off. They want to get as highly effective as they can. They want to be the best leader they can. They want to have the most days off that they can with the biggest income that still comes with it. Mm-hmm. Let's take them through these habits. I don't know what they are. I'm sure we're going to recognize many of them. I want to hear them from your perspective, though. So we don't know the order. Which one's is habit 1 for you?
Yeah, let's go to habit 1. So the first habit is $1 million CEOs and executives. They do regular time audits, right? That may sound familiar, right?
Okay.
Yep. Time audit. So, we've probably all heard the saying, time is money, right? And I believe it's total BS, right? Time is infinitely more valuable than money, right? How do we know? Because you can always get money back. You can't get time back, right? There's no way you can do it, right? So that's one way. So they do regular time audits. So typically, when I sit down with a client, we'll look at their calendar and I'll say, okay, let's look at what's your cost per hour? Like, what's your time per hour? And then we'll look at their calendar and we'll look at they say they want to build they made a build $1 million looking to get to 10 million, or they're at 5 million looking to get to 15 million. But if we look at their calendar is filled with $10 per hour activities, $0 per hour activities, $100 per hour activities, when in reality, we can actually shift their week to, I'll give you a specific example. So I had a client, she was stuck at about $40,000 a month, right? She was working 7 days a week, all day, call it 8 to faint, 7 days a week, right? And she was stuck at 40.
Write that down, Bob. I want that one.
She was stuck at 40 grand a month and she wanted to get to $1 million. So we actually went through a time audit, implemented some of the strategies, and just kind of shifted some of her focus to higher leverage activities, higher dollar activities. And now she works 2.5 to 3 days a week, and she makes 300 to 400 grand a month. And now she's like, Marquel, like, I don't know what I should be doing. Like, I don't have anything on my calendar to do. What should I be doing? I'd be like, hey, go enjoy your kids, right? Go do some of those other things you want to do. So that's number one, is time audit. I'm doing a regular time audit, looking at your calendar, reviewing your calendar from the week, and then see where you have stuff just filled on your calendar just because you feel like you have to be busy.
Now,
Bob,
settle down, Chad. Settle down. I know you're getting excited already.
No, I'm not going to. He's not talking about the building the right calendar that you don't do. I'm hearing him talking about knowing your hourly wage, which we've heard from Ben for so long. And when my hourly wage is $500 an hour, just to pick it, stop doing $50 an hour tasks.
Bingo.
There's someone you could be leveraging that to. You should be doing $500 to $1,000 an hour tasks. That's how you're going to scale yourself bigger and bigger and bigger. Correct?
100%. 100%.
Well, we have a look. Originally, when that lady was offloading some of those things, we have this concept here of leverage versus luxury. And so a lot of people, what they will do in their business, they'll go, oh, I'm stressed out, I'm maxed out, I'll get leverage. And when they bring that leverage in, they use that freed up time as a luxury, right? Like initially, as you're making that pivot from I'm totally overwhelmed to like you have to use it as leverage. So she's replacing, that $0, $10, even $100 an hour type of work with $1,000 work. She's not in the beginning moving from doing it all to having only 3 hours and 7 hours to spend with her kids, right? There's like this transition where you're taking that extra time and using it as leverage to go, do the higher producing thing, not as luxury like I would do, Chad, which is go golfing or take the day off or, okay.
100%. 100%. Because you guys may or may not be surprised, like how many business owners we work with who are, making 1, 2, 3 million, $500,000, $5 million or whatever. And they don't even, I was sitting with a client the other day, she does about 5 or 6 million a year. She didn't even have an executive assistant. Right. So she's like exhausted, making great money, but exhausted at the same time. So I always tell business owners that if you don't have an exec, that's like anybody who's listening right now, that's something you can do like this week, right? Hire an executive assistant and actually take the time to train them. Because a lot of times people are hire an executive assistant and then they actually expect them to already know everything that they're supposed to know and everything they're supposed to do when you actually got to take the time to train them. So I always tell people, like, if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant, right? So imagine you being a $5 million, $10 million a year business owner, but you're also an assistant. Like, that makes zero sense.
It's a great point. And we could probably take the whole podcast into that. Yet I want to make sure for the time that we have with you that we get through these habits. Bob, get that down. We might come back to it.
Okay.
What would habit 2 be?
Yeah. So if I was to grab habit number 2 is a big thing that I hear in the business world a lot is delegate, right? It's almost like, hey, if you don't want to do this, delegate. If you don't want to do this, delegate. If you don't want to do this, delegate it. Well, when it comes to auditing and like really zooming out, a lot of times we can actually delegate things that should actually be eliminated, right? So imagine delegating tasks that you just because a lot of times we'll find ourselves still doing stuff in the business that we're just doing out of habit, and it's because this is how we've always done it, right? But it may not even be necessary anymore, but it's just like, we just creatures of habit. So really when we audit, we want to look at like, okay, is this something that should be eliminated, right? Is this something that can be automated with some type of software? And if it doesn't pass any of those, but we know it's still essential, then we can actually delegate it. And then it's like, okay, can somebody in the team, can we delegate this to somebody in the team? Or is this necessary for a hire? Because we'll go into throwing people at a problem instead of saying, okay, is this a process issue? And can we fix this with just eliminate it completely? Or can we automate this process? Because if we just automatically go hire somebody, now this person needs a direct report. So now it's adding more time to you or somebody else. And you're also paying for this person. So any new people you add, you're also eating into your profit margin because now you're adding more expense and overhead in the business as well. So the first thing is eliminate first. Then can we automate? And then lastly, delegate.
That's, man, there's like, Chad, this intersects with like, to me, this is red light. This is the red highlighter, green highlighter, yellow highlighter exercise that we do with expenses, but it's doing it on like the processes in my business, right? To me, green highlight would be, right, or red highlight would be eliminate. Yellow's like, let's investigate this and figure out if there's a way to automate this, and red highlighter would say,
green is we got to keep
green
it.
Is green is keep it and delegate.
Right.
Yeah,
I'll delegate it off to someone else. And I really love that. Such a great point you bring up, Marquel, because so many people will just say, oh, it's a task that needs to be done by somebody. I can give it to someone else, when in reality, it might not need to be done. And in today's day and age, something that was being done a year ago, even, AI might have taken over being able to do for you, or, you get a better piece of software and it's automatically sending those email blasts or creating that content or whatever it is to take a lot of that stuff off your plate. What a great habit to make sure
and
people
even think about it. Even when you hire team members, you typically give them a specific task to do, right? I don't know if this has ever happened to y'all or anybody who's listening, but it's like, imagine a year or 2 or 3 years go by, and it's like you have a team member that's still doing stuff that was part of their roles and responsibilities when you first brought them on. But in your mind, you didn't even realize that they were still doing that. And you know that it's not even necessary. But just one day, somehow, you're like, why are you still doing that? And they're just like, well, this is what my role has always been. And you're like, well, we don't even got to do that anymore. But because you haven't audited or paid any attention to it, this person is spending their time, right, doing things that they don't even have to do. And they could actually be eliminating this, but you're still paying them to do stuff that's not even necessary in the business anymore, but you're just not aware of it.
It's really, I've experienced, so at our organization here, I don't know, Chad, I think there was 8 people here when I started, and we have 1,200 plus now or whatever. Right. The bigger the organization gets, the further the people that are doing the jobs are maybe away from the person that originally envisioned what the job would look like, the more that gap even gets wider, Marquel, right? It's like the first, he wasn't even here when we started thinking about this process that he's now implementing 5 years later. The further that gap is between that, that visionary and that person executing on the ground, the more likely it is that you'll have these things that probably could be eliminated or automated or made better.
100%.
So, Marquel, would that lead us to believe that while, the CEO, the founder of the company, you're saying these are habits for these people, yet they should probably make their direct reports be doing the same thing so that it's being trickled down through the organization, and we're cleaning up stuff at the bottom, which will either allow us to clean up some overhead expenses or at least strengthen and update our processes and create more opportunities for growth, because that founder is no longer looking at the entry-level job.
100%. Because the way I typically operate when I'm working with leaders or when we're developing leaders in the company, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of like, leaders' role is to develop leaders, not followers, right? So it's like, even when we have team members, it's like, all right, when I'm hiring somebody, or I'm working with somebody, like so my operations director right now, she came on as a VA. When I brought her on, I was like, hey, I'm not looking to bring somebody on who's just a task person, who's sitting around waiting for me to tell them everything to do. I want somebody who's going to be a leader. I want you to find better ways. I want you to make suggestions. I want you to think and put better ways of things in place, right? So I'm telling everybody on our team, I don't care if it's a salesperson, I don't care if it's a VA, I don't care if it's a social media person, like, you are the CEO of your role. So I want you to think as such, not as a task person. So like, whatever we're doing as a CEO and founder, we want to replicate those activities, those ways of thinking, throughout the organization, so that actually duplicates.
That's awesome. All right,
Chad, we've had conversations before about like, our system of education here in the United States does not breed that type of an employee, Marquel, right? Like, it breeds somebody that can do the tasks.
Government employee, task person.
A factory worker, right? Somebody that sits on a line all day and can follow the instructions to make sure the thing gets done. Like, you have to develop those leaders. Sometimes you'll even get really smart people, and we've seen this as our organization's grown. You get really smart people that are capable of making, but they're like PTSD'd from the last job they were at, where all they were asked to do is just follow the damn instructions, right?
Yeah.
So you got to like bring that out of people. You got to like pull it out of them sometimes, even though they're capable of it. They might not do it. So I mean, that's awesome. All right, what's number 3?
Mark, take us to habit 3.
Habit 3 is reflect and project. right? So one thing,
and project. Okay.
reflect and project. So one of the things I like to do personally and also teach is what we call an EOD report. Because of course we typically have our team members do end of day reports, but a lot of times what I found as CEOs and founders, we don't necessarily do our own EOD reports, right? And this is an end of day and the end of week. So what I do on Sundays at 5:00 on Sunday, I have, and it's a standing meeting every Sunday on my calendar. It says Marquel's meeting, right? So this is literally Marquel's meeting with himself from 5 to 7, and I'm reviewing the week, right? I'm reviewing my week. I'm projecting this week ahead and looking at where did I win this week, right? What are some quotes that I came across that I really enjoyed? What am I going to be studying this coming week? So I'm looking at all these different things. And a lot of times we're not tracking our wins, especially if we're high performing entrepreneurs. We typically don't track our wins. And if we aren't tracking our wins, like I had my therapy session earlier before I got on here with y'all. And one of the things my therapist asked me was like, man, how do you feel about yourself right now? Like, are you proud of yourself right now? Right? 'Cause I just had a birthday. I just got back from Ghana, a lot of different things.
Hey, happy
And
40th, right? You just had your 40th?
I just had my 40th, right?
Awesome.
And he was like, man, like, are you proud of yourself? And I was like, well, yeah. And he was like, all right, let me lean in on you a little bit. Tell me why. And I named a couple things. Like, he was like, no, let's not do the modest thing. Like, really tell me why. Like, run it down. And a lot of times, us as entrepreneurs, we're chasing a new goal or we're going after a new goal. We don't really count, and we'll think we're losing because we're looking at the gap of where we are and where we're looking to go, and we're not really tallying up all the wins that we've had. So I think we got to be very, very intentional about doing those things, because you could literally be in a winning season, but you'll think you're in a losing season because you're not even aware of all the areas of winning. So like reflecting, right, and projecting. I even tell people like a great analogy of this. I really enjoy the Bible, right? I'm a Bible guy, right? So I'm like, even God, after 6 days of creating, 7 days of creating, right? He even looked back and reviewed everything and was like, it was good. So I'm like, if God can review, like if it worked for him, I mean, it should work for us as well.
I think that sums that point up very nicely, Marquel. Take us right into habit 4, because there's not much we can follow on that.
First, perfect. So this one actually leads into what we were just talking about: empower versus enable, right? So as you're developing leaders, right, and teams, if you're always the resource, you enable and disempower your team members, right? So I'll go back to my operations director, who was my VA at one point when she came on. At first, I spent a lot of time creating Loom videos and training her and so forth, and like she started taking over customer support. And she used to be like, okay, this client said this, what should I say? And at first, I used to give her some answers, right? Some templates. And then eventually she'd be like, well, what should I say in this? And I'll say, well, what do you think you should say? And then from there, she started to realize that she actually had the capability and she already knew the answers. I just had to give her space to be empowered in that particular role. But a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we think that, well, this person, nobody's going to ever be able to do it as good as I can. Or if it's going to take me that amount of time to train somebody, I should just do it on my own, right? And all those different things. But you're really disempowering your team members instead of giving them the opportunity to step up to the plate and actually grow. So I think, so the next habit is they empower versus enable. They're not the resource. They'll point to the resource, though.
And yes. Like, I don't know. And maybe I'm kind of an asshole in this regard, but like, I don't know how many times I've said, well, why don't you let me Google that for you? Like, I don't have the answer either. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you need me to help you think through how we can go find the answer, like I'm all for that, but I could also just go find the answer. So like, yeah, teaching people sometimes how to go find the answers in our world because the reality is, Marquel, I don't know half the time either, right? When my team comes to me and is like, hey, what do we do here? I'm like,
yeah,
you just figure it out, right? You figure like, it's like you want to have people who are going to like figure it out. You're like, okay, here's a problem. So I'm like, I'm from the school of thought. It's like, don't come to me with a problem without a solution.
Yep. Might not be the right solution.
Yeah.
Yet brings some solution to the table, right?
Yep. Bingo.
Okay. And we don't judge the people then. We're empowering them to bring a solution. And we might say, great thought, let's do this instead. Or we might start saying, okay, that's good enough. Give it a shot. Let's see if it works. Building up their confidence in the decision-making aspect of it. which takes them to that next level. The more we do it for them, the less they have to think, right? And the
Exactly.
natural state of the brain is we want to be at rest because
Mhm.
the brain wants to be ready to react if, the tiger comes out from behind the tree. So
Mhm.
the brain's naturally going to attempt to be at rest. So if it doesn't have to think, it's not going to. So folks, if you're teaching your people not to think for themselves, they're never going to. Don't think
They're
that
never going
magically
to.
tomorrow they're going to flip that switch and turn it on.
Bingo.
Okay.
100%. 100%.
Habit 5. Bob, we're on 5, right? You got us so
I
far?
got time audits. I got delegate, eliminate, automate. I've got reflect and project, and I've got empower versus enable. What's number 5, Marquel?
So number 5. So next one is, are we on 5 or 6? What are we on? I'm not sure.
We're on 5.
We don't know the list, so you tell us.
I got time audits, number 1. I got delegate, eliminate, or automate, number 2. I've got reflect and project, number 3. And number 4 I had is empower versus enable. I could have missed one, too. I'm a moron.
Okay, perfect. All right, so empower versus enable. So, all right, so next up is leaders. They lead from the front, right? So they're willing to do the thing, right? It's fascinating to me how a lot of times, again, when I'm working with a leader and they're complaining to me about their team, 99.9% of the time, the leader is actually the issue, not the team member, right? Because a lot of times they're hiring people to do stuff that they either haven't done or they don't have any experience in, so they don't even know what done and success looks like, right? So, for example, if they want their team to be on time, leading from the front looks like being on time, right? If they want their team to be healthy, right, leading from the front would be like showing what that looks like. Like, are they going for walks? Are they hitting the gym? Are they eating clean? Are they doing the things like whatever they want the culture to be? They're actually leading from the front. They're showing like, here's what. Like a client told me the other day, she was like, I really enjoy what you do because you know the way and you show the way. And she was like, and that's what great leaders do, right? So like in our predictable scale flywheel, as part of our framework, one of the pillars is world-class team. And in that world-class team is like leaders, they lead from the front, they do the thing, and now they set the tone of the rest of the team.
We see so we've got a couple business lines here, but in one of the business lines, we partner with real estate teams, and that owner, that CEO of that real estate team, a lot of times that they will want to shortcut the growth process, right? So they'll be like, well, I'm going to hire a director of sales. And I'll be like, have you ever played that role on your team?
Yep.
No.
Yep.
All right. Well, you're going to need to play that role for a little bit before you bring that role in. Because how the hell are you going to know what it looks like? How are you going to know what success is, right? And we've got models around here to help them shortcut that a little bit, but they still have to play that role, because otherwise, how are they going to lead that person in that role? It becomes challenging to do it, right?
100%. I kind of like, because a lot of times people just want to offset it, and like they want to outsource it. So I had people come, they hired an agency, and the ad agency screwed them over. It was like, well, you never knew what to expect from the ad agency because you've never ran ads, right? You don't have any metrics. You don't know what success looks like. You hired a salesperson, they're not hitting KPI. Well, you never even sold this offer yourself over the phone. You're just afraid of sales, and you feel like you should be doing something else. So now you outsource sales, which is a high leverage, high profit activity, to like check your own emails, right? So it's like that makes zero sense.
That's
as
the
a leader
activity.
Well, you start getting bad information from your organization, or it's not vetted, right? And if you've never done that job, like we'll just take sales, right? They're telling you these leads suck. We hear this all the time, right? These leads suck, and you're like, okay, how many of them have you called yourself?
Yeah.
Right. And what almost always happens is you put that challenge to that person who's leading that organization, and they come back and they go, yeah, the leads don't suck. I think it's actually a scripting issue with my salesperson, right? They're not saying the right thing. They're not asking the right questions. But again, they would never know that without that information. They would just take that bad information they got and potentially present it as gospel when it's not.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times what I found is that a lot of CEOs, in some instances, they think that the role of the CEO is hands off, right? But as a CEO, in some respects, it is very hands on, and I think one of the biggest roles of the CEO is to fix the bottleneck. So to your point, it's like, hey, if it's a sales issue, all right, let me jump on the call and have a conversation with some of these leads so I can actually see what's up. All right, let me log into the ad account so I can actually see what's going on inside the ad account. What are we doing? Are we maximizing all these assets or whatever the case may be?
Yeah.
You know, what I'm hearing in this, Marquel, and this is going to be my favorite habit of all of them. I know it is already. This is lead by example,
Yeah,
right? That is
100%.
lead by, right? Everyone's like, oh, you shouldn't lead from the front, lead from the rear, help your people, put, right? No, this is go out in front and say, I'm not a hypocrite, right?
Yeah,
I can't tell you, I can't sit here on the Win, Make, Give podcast and talk about health regularly and give Bob a hard time about health and challenge our audience and not be healthy. Right.
exactly.
I mean, I got to lead from the front and say, okay, I'm going to go run a marathon. So I don't expect you to run a marathon, but you can run around the block, right?
Yep.
You can add those 10,000 steps to the day, whatever that is. I think, folks, right? It's lead by example, and it's not lead by, well, I did that once.
Yep.
Right. And a lot of times we get leaders who say, well, yeah, I used to sell. So that's what got me here. And they forget what sales are like today because things have changed and it is going to be different with the internet and different kinds of leads. All right. So just to keep us moving, keep us on time, habit 6.
All right, habit 6. Habit 6 is they master the mundane, right? They master the mundane. So, so I'll give you a great analogy. So if you think about Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, I always ask people like, what do these individuals have in common? And they'll
Well,
name.
you've got a Meatloaf song right there, right? 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I mean, we could discuss that third one you added to the list, but
Oh Lord, here we go. We'll be on here another hour having that conversation.
Hey, hold on. This is clearly a commentary from somebody that's never played basketball at any level other than like seventh grade, right? Like LeBron James is a beast, guy.
He's a monster. Like, he's a monster.
He's an absolute legend. But anyway,
dude is a monster.
Moving on, we'll ignore that comment from Chad.
Right. I won't go down that rabbit hole because I want this episode to get released. So they master the mundane, right? So I always ask, what do they master? So people say championships, all this different type of stuff. I say, no, they mastered 3 things: dribbling, passing, and shooting. Right? They mastered those 3 things. A lot of times, especially like with a lot of technology, and people will get away from the basics. Like, what are the basics, right? Leads, maybe depending on your business. Most businesses is going to be generating leads, qualifying those leads, selling those leads, and then reselling those leads into other things, right? So it's like, if we get away from a lot of the basics, that's when things get complicated. It's like, all right, no, let's get back to the basics. So they master the mundane, and based on your business is going to, for the most part, it's going to be generating leads, selling the leads, bringing on clients, and then retaining those leads, and then doing that over and over and over again, and then systemizing the process. And you can go deeper, but for the most part, it's dribbling, passing, and shooting. Are we dribbling, passing, shooting every day?
That's boring, though. I don't want to do that again. I did that yesterday.
Yeah, it's very boring. It's like a well-run business is a boring business, right?
Say that again.
A well-run business is a boring business.
That says it all right there.
One of our co-founders at Place, kind of our umbrella company, the very first time I ever heard him give a speech, I had planned to go up after him later that day, and I was going to do a new thing. I was going to bring this new content to our company, and his speech an hour before mine was, mastery is boring. And he did this whole thing about how mastery is boring. I literally dumped my speech I was going to do an hour later and went back to one I'd probably done 50 times before for our organization, because it's, the fundamentals of sales don't change. Like in our world, it's you don't leads,
even have to say sales,
it's appointments, it's
the fundamentals of everything don't change. Nope. Right? Fundamentals of exercise.
No new fundamentals.
Can you do a push-up? It's still the same thing, right? Can you that stuff hasn't changed. A bicep curl is a bicep curl on health. A sales call is a sales call. The script might be a little different. The product might be a little different. A car is the same thing, right? I don't care if you're driving a Ford, a Honda, whatever. They're all the same, right? Yeah. Fundamentals stay the same. That's such a great point. And folks, we all want the excitement. We all want the energy. I don't know how many people say to me, well, I love the chaos. It's like, well, that's why your business isn't where it can be, because it's not as boring as it should be, because you're wanting that chaos and thriving in it. All right.
Hold on. I don't want to leave this one yet. I coach, I've got young kids, Marquel. I have a 17-year-old, and then I have a 7 and an 8-year-old, and I coach the younger boys. basketball teams, and my youngest son is really good. But every day we start, and this is because Steph Curry does it this way. When he comes in the gym, he starts from right in front of the basket. Still, this guy, Steph Curry, who can shoot from the other side of the court, he still starts every single practice, 10 shots right in front of the basket, takes one step back, 10 shots. So like, that's how I start with my son every day. And he's like, oh, I want to shoot threes. And I'm like, I don't give a shit what you want to do. We're going to start in front of the basket. If the best player in the world starts there, that's where we're going to start.
Exactly.
Right?
100%. It's my
Well,
same
again, we're not going to have the argument about
year-old.
that best player in the world comment, though, right?
Well, whatever. Steph Curry, best shooter in the world. Let's put it that way. Undisputed.
It's spot on. Like my 11-year-old is like, I'm telling him, like, once you master the dribbles, it's easy to take it between your legs. But you got to master being able to dribble with regularly first. So we're spot on 100%.
Yeah, it's amazing how many of us skip the basics because we say we learned them, let's move on to other things, and we forget to have to go back to them. All right, Bob, you stole my intro with the bio bit, right? You stole my segue. So I'm making you steal the recap that I usually get to do before we get to the last one on the list. Give us the 6 habits.
All right, we're 6 of 7 down. We've got time audits. Make sure that we're focused our time on the right things, the high dollar producing activities. We got delegate, eliminate, or automate. Constantly kind of reassessing the things we're doing in the business and making sure that one of those 3 things doesn't need to happen with that task. Reflect and project. Maybe it's daily. Marquel is doing it weekly, right? Empower versus enable. Lead from the front. Master the mundane. And number 7
is
number 7. So what's interesting, I think I got excited and I kind of ran these 2 together and ran over one. So the first one was do a time audit.
Yep.
So the time audit, that's when we nail it all the way down to figure out what's your time worth per hour, right?
Okay. Yep.
It's real simple how we do that. We write down your ideal annual income, then we figure out how many hours per week you want to work, multiply that times 48, divide it by the revenue number, and then you find out what your number is, right? Once we do the time audit, the second part of that, I kind of ran them together. The second part is a calendar audit.
Yes.
Right? So regular calendar audits.
All right, so we're making this habit 7, right? It might have been 2 on Markel's other list, or if you heard him somewhere else, but number 7, we're going to finish it with is a calendar audit. All right, Bob, pay attention.
And then on the calendar audit, so basically if I was to break this down, we have this process called the 80-20 power grid, right? So it goes from negative $100 per hour activities all the way to $100,000 per hour activities. So I'll run down a couple from each category real quick. Okay. And I tell people, like, this isn't to judge anybody, right? And I get, like, some stuff it's just an awareness exercise. So, for example, a negative $100 per hour activity. Sometimes, again, like I said, it might come off as judgment, but it's not. So, for example, hanging out with negative people is a negative $100 per hour activity, right? Worrying what people think of you is a negative $100 per hour activity. Avoiding problems that need to be fixed. It's a negative $100 per hour activity. Doing stupid stuff, breaking promises and letting people down, right? Drinking alcohol, right? Eating fast food. These are all negative $100 per hour activities.
Bob, you got a high score going there with some of that.
Get out of here.
Right? Like I used to be a heavy weed smoker back in the day, right? But smoking weed is a negative $100 per hour activity. Now, am I saying don't do these things? No. It's just an awareness exercise, right?
Yeah.
A $0 per hour activity is watching Netflix, right? Now, there is some nuance because if I'm watching Netflix with my kids or my wife, I'm okay with that. Now, am I generating revenue and all that? No, but I'm totally okay with sitting down binge watching Law & Order SVU or something with my wife or Chicago PD or something. Right? I'm totally cool with that. But I'm just aware that I'm not going to sit around all day and do it. Scrolling social media is a negative $100 per hour activity. I'm just scrolling mindlessly, right? So it's a $0 per hour activity. $10 per hour activities.
Hold on. Okay, so scrolling social media is 0 unless you got a bunch of negative assholes on there, and then it's actually a negative $100.
There you go. I agree.
Especially this time of year coming into election season.
This will drop thankfully after the election, but yes, while we're recording this, it's a negative score right now.
For sure. $10 per hour activity. Running errands, right? Standing in the line at the grocery store.
Yep.
Let's see. Cooking meals. I mean, unless this is like you're doing some for like therapeutic. Let's see, customer support, answering your phone and text, right? Depending on unless it's a big part of your business. These are some random ones. Spelling everything perfectly.
If there's a red squiggly, I need red squiggly lines. I don't know how to spell without the red squiggly line anymore.
Right. Or get Grammarly. Grammarly is like $100 a year or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like they'll definitely show you what's up. All right, I'm gonna keep going because I know we get to the top of the hour. So $100 power activities. $100. Solving a problem for a client. Talking to a qualified prospect. Writing emails to prospects or clients. Managing ad campaigns. Outsourcing simple tasks. So these are a few $100 power activities. Posting content on your social. Reading books and taking courses. $100 hour activities.
Listening to the Windmaker podcast is at least that, right?
100%, at least.
There you go. Okay.
Right.
At least.
Especially this episode, right?
That's right.
$1,000 power activities. Planning and organizing your day. Now, hard driving entrepreneurs are like, man, planning and organizing my day, that's not generating revenue. It actually is, right? Planning and organizing your day. When I played football in high school, my coaches used to say proper planning prevents poor performance, right? So planning, negotiating with a prospect, building sales funnels and webinars, $1,000 per hour activity, delegating complex tasks, $1,000 per hour activity. So that's a few. Hanging out with smart people, like this right here for me is $1,000 per hour activity, at least, right? Meditation, $1,000 per hour activity, right? $10,000 per hour activity. Creating and improving your products, creating and improving your offers, improving your value proposition, negotiating major deals, hiring and firing team members, $10,000 per hour activity, establishing value and culture, selling to qualified groups, public speaking to qualified crowds, cutting costs is a $10,000 hour activity, reflection and honest self-analysis, so like that reflect and project, $10,000 hour activity, and I'm fixing repeating problems and errors.
You know what's crazy,
$10,000 power
Chad?
activity.
Like as I sit here and listen to him rattle these things off, and I use
You're seeing what Ben used to do
man,
and what Ben does
I
now?
just use him as a mirror on this, and I'm like, yeah, like he's definitely only doing $10,000 an hour activities.
Yeah, but he used to do $100 an hour activities, or maybe even the
100%.
$0 hour activity. We've seen him grow and become, and that's why the organization's grown with him because of it.
Yeah,
100%.
The interesting thing here is there are certain things that you can't stop doing at $100 an hour, right? Things like education, books, and courses. I mean, you still are going to do that stuff even when you're doing $10,000 an hour activities. Yep. But you start to lean your calendar, right? Your time audits, they start to lean towards the higher end. Yep. You know, the bigger your life goes, and
it's the good old 80-20, 90-10, right? So if let's say you're 80% of your time, 90% of your time is $10,000 and $100,000 per hour activities. And then you still got 20%, for those. So this ain't saying like, hey, cancel all. I'm not saying, hey, go cancel all your subscriptions onto the TV streaming software as well. Right. I like it's Wednesday for me. So we're going to watch Chicago PD tonight, right? So it's like, that's kind of our date night. That's our thing. We like watching TV, but we ain't sitting around 80% of my time watching TV.
Sure. I can go back 15, 20 years when my daughter was 5-6 years old and be to a point where it was a $1,000 an hour activity to sit down and watch, Hannah Montana or whatever it was, because it was that bonding opportunity with her. It wasn't just watching some TV show that gives me no value. Yep. It was getting it right. So there are certain things on the scale that might show up as a $0.
That's what I was saying. There's some nuance to it for sure.
Right. And if I were watching Hannah Montana on my own, that's a negative $100 an hour job, folks, or activity there. It becomes different because of who you're doing it with. All right, Marquel, you've taken us through these.
Let me give you that. Let me give you the last one.
$100,000 activity.
$100,000 per hour activity. $100,000 per hour activity is capital allocation decisions, salary and incentive decisions, restructuring decisions, establishing long-term partnerships, setting long-term strategy and direction, architecting systems and machines, and radical innovation.
That's a high-level thinking stuff right there, folks.
100%.
Right? Go back and take something from that list and do at least an hour of it every week.
Yeah.
Right. Do at least an hour of it every week, no matter what. Force yourself out of some of that stuff. Yes, you got to stick to the mundane. You got to remember those principles and the basics, but force yourself to be doing at least an hour, at least. And then your business will get to a point where you're doing 5-6 days of that thinking a week, and your income will reflect it, as will the company that you're running.
100%.
Like anything in life, like you're never going to change this behavior unless you start by assessing it, right? Like you said, this is an exercise in awareness, essentially. And like it will not change unless you're aware of what it is. And then you decide to set out and say, man, I'm going to do Chad's thing an hour a week. I'm going to make sure I'm in that $100,000 bucket, right? And then I'm going to try to get rid of as many of the negative $100. But yeah,
I didn't just turn my phone off. I started to say, okay, we headed to bed at 8:00. So at 7:00, I was going to put it on Do Not Disturb. So that last hour with my wife, I was uninterrupted. Then I got to a point to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take it from 7 down till 6:00 at night. And now I'm going to be on it because I'm getting the stuff done. It wasn't that one day I said, you know what? I'm never going to answer my phone.
Yeah.
Now I don't answer my phone, but it was an hour by a time where if you're not on my calendar and you call me, I'm not answering you. Right.
Yeah.
There's like 3 exceptions to that if they called, something's up. Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not answering you because I'm not expecting to talk to you at that time. So it's going to get skipped.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree.
His website, one of his many, right? ScaleMadeEasy.com. That's going to be your easiest way if you want to stick with, track, learn more about some of the stuff Marquel's got going on. That's Marquel Russell. He's got podcasts. He's got an assessment. I mean, who doesn't love doing assessments and learning more about ourselves, right? You can connect with him there. Check it out at ScaleMadeEasy.com. Marquel, even though this episode will air a little bit after we recorded it, happy 40th birthday on behalf of the Win, Make, Give audience. We appreciate you celebrating and sharing with us. I know you've got a lot more value. So folks, jump into our Facebook group, facebook.com/Win, Make, Give. Let me know you got value from this one. Because if you did, I'll bring Marquel back because I know he's got a list of stuff we didn't come anywhere near. So I will leave Bob and Marquel now to argue where LeBron James sits on the greatest of all time players. But folks, we'll let you get out of here. So until our next episode, Bob, why don't you steal it from me?
As always, do good.